About that, everyone. We're good to go. And again, I'd like to introduce Duncan MacPherson, CEO, Pareto Systems, speaker, business coach, and best-selling author. All right, Duncan.
Thank you, Tyler. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this informative webinar on how to rebrand your referral process. This was also an opportunity for us to introduce the new and very improved Pareto Academy, which is a virtual, sequential coaching program and solution that will enable a financial advisory team to consistently attract and keep great clients and run an exceptional business. Now, if you have a team member who could not attend today, we are recording this conversation. I'm standing in front of a smartboard video recording, and we'll have this presentation available for you today. But for those of you who are here, I really appreciate your investment of time and effort. I know there's a lot you could be doing right now instead of listening to me. I never take that lightly. So I want you to be able to walk away from this experience feeling this was just a tremendous investment of your time. Now, I'm going to talk about rebranding your referral process. Now, first of all, this is a process. This is not a collection of ideas or tactics or strategies. There are all kinds of ideas that you can go out and get to try to improve your referability. That's not what this is. It's not ideas. This is a turnkey, very predictable process proven to work by some of the best financial professionals in the business. It is not temporary in its value. You've attended a lot of coaching programs in the past. It was good at the moment. A lot of those ideas go to your head to die. That's not what this is. This is a turnkey, actionable approach for you and your team that will lead to proven, predictable outcomes. Now, the beauty of the Pareto Academy, and I'll just be very brief on this, is that this is something that you and your team can access right in your office, no soft cost. You don't have to jump on a plane. You don't have to go to a conference center. You can access Pareto system strategies right at your computer in real time. More on that a little bit later on. But for now, let me set the tone. Your worst case scenario here is that if we never talk again, you'll be able to walk away from this exercise having strategies you can translate into results around a proven, actionable process. The best case scenario is that you'll see the merit in sampling the Pareto Academy for yourself. Now, I'll just move to the next slide. Part of the call to action is if this approach that I talk about with you here today very briefly resonates with you, we will provide as a free sample our turnkey introduction process. Now, as you can see on this slide, the Pareto system includes 20 turnkey strategies that encompass our core chassis and process. The introduction process is one of those strategies I'll be covering here today. I'll also provide you with a call to action where you can go and access this and translate it into results with your team. Again, it's a free sample. Hopefully you'll see the merit in becoming a subscriber for an entire year. But again, more on that later. Let's get into the nuts and bolts and talk about the concept of attracting a high quality and quantity of referrals from your best clients and strategic partners. Now, I'm going to give you a series of very actionable concepts here. I'm also going to bring on a special guest who's going to share with you results from the field that he achieved by going through this process. But let's talk about, first of all, positioning. And as you can see from this slide, it says how not to position referrals. You know, it's interesting. This process was developed and refined through an exercise of assimilation. I've been conducting a gap analysis for some of the best financial advisors in the business. And they share with me what works and what doesn't. I provide suggestions, and from that comes this approach. Now, it's interesting. This entire approach revolves around two words, why and how. Now, a lot of financial advisors come to me and they say, how do I get more referrals? The first question I ask them is, why don't you get referrals? Now, what do you think some of the most common responses are to that question? Why don't you get referrals? The most common response I get from some of the best people in this business is, I don't get the quality or quantity of referrals from my clients or partners because I don't ask for them. That's the most common response I get. And when they say that to me, I say, perfect. Because I tell all of the advisors who will listen, never ask for referrals. Now, I know that's counterintuitive because you attend a lot of conferences. A lot of coaches have said to you, if you want more referrals, just simply ask for them. The problem with asking for a referral is that it makes you look needy, and you can't bring your needs to your clients. It's just not attractive. And remember something, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. It's one thing to see how a client responds when you say something like, who else do you know? I'm looking for new clients. Who else could you refer to me? It's one thing to see how they respond when they're in front of you, but what really matters is what they're thinking after they walk out of your office. I think that approach hurts you more than it helps you. In fact, the most referable financial advisors in this business will tell you they never ask for referrals. What they do, however, is they communicate their value, but it starts with positioning. The positioning is this. You have to position the concept of you meeting with a friend or a family member of a client as a service you're providing to the client, not as a favor you're asking of that client. And the same could be held true as it relates to a strategic partner. That is where it begins, positioning it as a service rather than a favor. That's number one. Number two, the second biggest issue that undermines referability is a lack of clarity. You see, unless and until I know how endorsing you to a friend or a family member or a client will ultimately come back to reflect on me, chances are I'm just not going to go there. I mean, it's easy to refer someone to you. The problem is it's way easier not to, because I'm not endorsing a thing or a product or a transaction. This is a very meaningful relationship, one of the most important relationships in anybody's life. Unless and until I have clarity on your process and how that endorsement will come back to reflect on me from a validation perspective, I might not go there. So when you can address these two components, your referability goes up quite dramatically. Now, one of my favorite examples, this was brought up to me about a week or two ago. I was talking to a financial advisor that I met about 2 years ago initially. I was performing a gap analysis, a business evaluation on his business to help him get clarity on his unmet needs, untapped opportunities, overlooked vulnerabilities, a very, very revealing exercise. And I asked him a series of questions. When it got to referrals, I simply asked him, how many referrals have you received in the last 12 months? He said 8. I said, okay, of those 8, how many of those 8 perfectly resembled your ideal client profile? And he answered 1. And I said, okay, you are the architect of that outcome. And at the time, he was $1 million advisor. That was his production level. And I said to him, there are so many qualities that you possess that are incredibly hard to teach, but they serve as a foundation. You are referable, but you are in fact a $2 million advisor currently doing $1 million because you're not articulating or positioning the value of referability correctly. Fast forward 12 months. I asked him the question again. Now, how many referrals have you received from your clients and strategic partners? He said 16. And I said, of those 16, how many of them perfectly resembled your ideal client profile? He said 14. A tremendous difference in terms of performance and measurable results. Here's the irony. He did not become a better financial advisor in 12 months. He was already good. But now, because of communication, his clients and strategic partners actually understand and appreciate his value and can articulate it properly because of his positioning and his delivery of process. That is what this is about. So let's drill down. Let's go into the next slide, and let's talk about positioning referrals as a service. Now, first of all, this is not a campaign. There are referral campaigns that you can subscribe to and buy to try to drive referrals. I don't recommend them. Referability is not a campaign. It's about ongoing and consistent imprinting. Imprinting is steady, linked, and sequential communication that coincides with what is called a stage of readiness. You see, you don't know when a friend is going to be ready to listen to your client brag about you. The key is when that moment of truth occurs, you want your client to be ready. So, excuse me, when a friend says to a client of yours, are you happy with your financial advisor? What do they say? How do they respond? Or how about when a client of a strategic partner like an accountant or an estate planning attorney says, are you happy, or do you have a financial advisor you can recommend to me? What do they say at that moment of truth? Are they ready to describe you professionally? Now, this is where it really gets interesting. The next portion of the slide you can see, it says stand out from the pack. What separates the best from the rest when it comes to referability is the best drive their business and their relationships from a mindset and an approach of stewardship, not salesmanship. You know, the first question you have to ask yourself, if you want to improve your referability, are you referable? Consultants are far more referable than salespeople. Okay, so that's where it begins, and that's how you elevate and stand out from the pack. But let's go beyond that. Let's go to the next slide. Where do you go specifically here with these action items I'm going to provide? The first bullet says, only offer this service to your best clients. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, you know how the Pareto principle works. 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients, plus or minus. You know that. Now, do you consistently invest 80% of your time on the 20% of the clients who drive 80% of your business? That's a common sense. Is it a common practice? What I'm suggesting to you is if you have 300 clients right now, you have 60 who carry the freight, who are probably close to your ideal client profile based on their assets, their attitudinal compatibility, and their advocacy. Start there, because those are the clients you're striving to competitor-proof, you're striving to maximize in terms of the relationship value, and you're trying to replicate. So I'm not saying be disrespectful or elitist to any of your clients, but if you're going to start with this approach and this process, start where it makes the most sense. Start with the clients who are the most deserving that you're trying to replicate and competitor-proof. That's number one. Number two, subscribe to the notion that this approach is not trickery. It's not clever tactics or phraseology or clever positioning rooted in salesmanship. It's none of that. This is professionalism at its highest level, where you're basically saying, if you've got someone who's important to you, they're important to me. A value-added service to my clients is I will make myself available to be a sounding board for that person. I'll elaborate that in a moment, but it's positioned with integrity and professionalism, and you've removed the mystery. Now, here's the thing. Don't be attached to the results. There's an immutable law in business called the law of cause and effect. The laws of cause and effect say that your activity will determine your productivity. If you take expectations away from the productivity and just keep your head down and focus on good, consistent, professional activity, the productivity will, in fact, take care of itself. It is inevitable. And I could parade advisors through your office who would say, I have never been more comfortable about having a conversation about introducing a friend to me ever than since I've adopted this approach. But let's go into some of the more detailed information here. Let's go to the next slide and talk about the introduction process. Now, first of all, and not to oversimplify it, but you want to frame the communication of referrals to clients and partners around why, who, and how. Okay? Yes, you want to clarify how to make an introduction. That is the easy part. Okay? A lot of people say to me, how do I get more referrals? That's easy. It's the why, it's the who, which is often the mystery. And if you get the why and the who clear, the how becomes so much more powerful. So let's remove the mystery around why you make yourself available. And then let's also talk about who you make yourself available for. More on that in a second. Let's talk about why. So it's one thing to answer why you make yourself available, but what about why you're not getting referrals? As you can see here, you might have clients or partners who don't know that you may be taking on new clients. Now, here's the thing. This is not an initiative to drive client acquisition. You're positioning the concept of speaking to a friend as a service you're providing for them, and then letting your fit process reveal if in fact there is an alignment and that you should work together as a client financial advisor in the future. But you have to demystify that. Okay? The second thing is people don't talk about money or money-related issues all the time. Here's what I want you to remember, and this is branding 101. A driving force in your business revolves around the acronym FORM. Okay? So you might not have clients who talk specifically about investments, but here's the thing. They talk about family-related issues. They talk about occupational issues. They talk about recreational issues. All of these issues are brought to life by achieving financial independence. Okay? This is the why. Money, the M in FORM, is the how. When you talk to your clients and strategic partners about why financial independence is important to them, they place a lot more value in how you get them there. And you become more referable when you take this panoramic approach. You think about a typical 20-minute conversation with a great client, you might talk for 5 minutes about money and 15 minutes about their family, occupation, or recreational interests. Well, your clients have these same conversations about these issues. These trigger moments of recognition where, you know, when you position the concept of a family investment legacy deliverable with your clients, that becomes topical. When you talk about achieving a work optional lifestyle or aspiring to financial independence in retirement, that becomes topical. Achieving a bucket list is achieved through financial independence. You see, you become part of that equation. And the more emphasis you place on this, not only do you decommoditize yourself, you make it a lot easier to talk about you, not just from the standpoint of the products and solutions you provide, but the value you bring to their lives. So this is what separates stewardship from salesmanship, and you become indispensable. Your clients make this connection, you become more topical. It's easier to shine a light on you. And then the third bullet says, people don't necessarily know how to proceed. Now, here's what's interesting. When there's clarity on the why, when there's clarity on the who, and there's clarity on the how, referability goes through the roof. And I'm asking you to address this. Now, here's the thing about the who. Have you told your clients who your ideal client is? Or have you left them to their own devices to figure that out? And here's the thing. Salespeople talk about their ideal client based on who they're looking for. I'm asking you to talk to people about who you're suited for. I mean, convey to them that you're not all things to all people. You're all things to some people. And define who those people are and use AAA as the framework around assets, attitudinal qualities, and advocacy. Okay? Be crystal clear about that. So explain the who and explain the why. And this is so profoundly important. Tell your clients why you make yourself available to speak to a friend or family member. It's rooted in your sense of purpose. I mean, tell your clients that the most fulfilling thing you do is helping people make informed decisions about their financial future, tuning out the noise, focusing on what matters, focusing on what they can control, whether or not they're a client. And in fact, when you say to a client that they can feel free to introduce someone to you, and that friend or family member does not need to become a client to take advantage of the service, you become more referable. Now your client's not fixating on whether or not they're going to send you the right client. They're just going to introduce someone to you who can use you as a sounding board and then let your fit process take care of the rest. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you here. The sample module from the Pareto Academy we're providing for you at no charge, called the introduction process, is turnkey. It's time-tested, proven to work. It's not on trial, and you and your team can bring that to life. So if you want to take action and translate this stuff into measurable results, I'll show you how to do that as we wrap up. So let me continue on. I've talked about the why. Be crystal clear about why you're making yourself available. Drive it with your sense of purpose. Explain to your clients that anybody they introduce to you does not need to become a client to take advantage of the service. Then describe who you're suited for. Because somebody will say, well, who is an ideal client for you? You can demystify that using AAA. And then explain how. Now, what's really important from your perspective is to buy into this concept of imprinting. Imprinting means that it's not one burst of activity. You're simply reminding clients about your value-added service. And in every form of communication, it could be on a phone call, it could be in a review meeting, it can be in a newsletter, it could be in a card, it could be on your website, it could be in an email. You can be reminding about your value-added service. Let me tie this all in with an actionable idea. Okay, and this is drawn directly from the introduction process available in the module that we'll provide for you. Okay, let's say you engage in a consistent call rotation with your clients. So your top 60, for example, you contact every 60 days. You're not trying to be the bearer of any profound news. You're not trying to sell anything. You're just touching base. Hey, how you doing? And having a form conversation. You're being interested, not trying to be interesting. You're trying to impress upon them that they matter to you, not trying to impress them with your knowledge, and there is a big difference there. Now, here's my point. You have this conversation. The conversation's winding down. And as the conversation is about to end, you simply ask this question. You say, hey, just before I let you go, with all that's going on in the world right now, tell me, how are your friends and family members coping with this period of uncertainty and volatility? Are they looking to the future with anticipation or apprehension? Just ask the question and see what it reveals. And they will respond with it could be a very basic response, or it could be something more meaningful, but whatever the response is, they're giving you permission to go deeper. Now, a Socratic approach means that many issues are 2 or 3 questions deep. So you might want to follow up with this next question and simply say, hey, well, based on that, and I appreciate what you're saying, if you don't mind me asking, when you talk about me with a friend or a family member, what do you say? How do you describe me? And let them describe you. Let them tell you what they're saying. Now, there's a very good chance that they're going to describe you in generalities and platitudes and superlatives, and that's fine. But what it reveals to you is they don't know how to describe your process. They're describing you, the person, the messenger, but not clearly your message in a differentiated way. This gives you an opportunity to clarify that. So what if you were to say to your clients at this point, just say, okay, the reason I'm asking you this question is because I want to remind you that as a value-added service, I make myself available to be a sounding board for friends and family members of my clients. And you just stop and see what it reveals. Now, here's what happens. You'll have some clients that will say to you, okay, that's great to know, and I'll keep that in mind. And you just drop it. That's an imprint. And then as the rest of the relationship unfolds, you can just keep reminding. But here's the thing. In about half of the situations, you will have a client who responds, and they'll say, you know, it's interesting you said that, because I've been talking to a friend, and they are a little bit disillusioned with their advisor. They are concerned about the future, and that gives you an opportunity to explain the why, the who, and the how. And here's how you do it. You say, well, let me tell you why I do this. I became a financial advisor to help people make informed decisions about their financial future, because contrary to the old cliche, financial success is a matter of choice, not chance. What you don't know can hurt you. Ignorance is not bliss. The most fulfilling thing I do is helping people tune out the noise, focus on what they can control, focus on what matters. That's why I do it. And then, just so you know, if you ever introduce someone to me, they do not need to become a client to take advantage of this service. If they're important to you, they're important to me. See, you're explaining the why. And that is the segue to the who. And you can say, now, on occasion, I will meet with a friend or a family member of a client, and we really hit it off. And we do, in fact, decide to work together. Let me tell you who those people are. And then just describe your ideal client based on AAA. They have assets and needs that are aligned with my expertise now and in the future. It's just a good fit based on assets. They have attitudinal qualities that are compatible. We have good chemistry. We get along well over the long haul. And they're advocates. And this is a really big key. Advocacy. You know, it's interesting. I ask advisors all the time, what's your definition of an advocate? And they'll often say to me, well, an advocate is somebody who looks out for me. They wave my flag. And I say to them, you're half right. You see, an advocate doesn't refer someone to you because they're trying to help you grow your business. They actually feel they're doing a friend a disservice if they don't make an introduction. You see, they're not just an advocate for you, they're an advocate for the friend as well. They understand the alignment of interest, and they go out of their way to make that introduction. And that's what you're striving for. And it's all by virtue of good communication. So I'm asking you just to review the why and the who, and then go to the how. Now, a good segue to the how is to simply say, you know, if a client introduces someone to me and they're not a good fit, and they do want to work with me, I'll introduce them to somebody who I think is more suitable. And just explain why you do that, that it's all about the fact that you're not trying to be all things to all people, that you understand capacity and a consistent client experience. Just clarify that, but then go to the how. And just say this phrase. Now, there is a process in place that my clients use for making introductions. Just start with that. There is a process in place. You see, the word process conveys order. It conveys structure, consistency, professionalism. Just by virtue of you having a process, you subconsciously just conveys to the client that they can feel comfortable that referring you will reflect back very well back on them. So why do you do it? Who do you do it for? How to make an introduction? Demystify that. Your referability will go through the roof. Now, here's the thing. And just before we get to our special guest here, okay? So be referable, as you can see on this next slide. Have an advocate service matrix for the 20% of the clients who generate 80% of the business. They deserve your time. Be referable there as a starting point. Continuously exceed expectations by professionalizing your business through a client experience based on the clients you want to competitor-proof, gain the full empowerment, and improve referability. And then just keep reminding by imprinting your process in every form of communication. And in this module that we're providing for you on the introduction process, that is made completely easy and turnkey. So let's go to that next slide. This is a snapshot of what the introduction process looks like that is available to you. Okay, this is a sample. I mean, if you've been to Costco and you've seen the person at the stand offering free samples of the Asiago dip, and you take a taste and you say, you know what, that tastes good, I think I'll buy an entire, that's really what we're talking about here. We want to give you a sample so that you can see the merit and the relevance for your business. Hopefully, you'll decide to opt in to the full Pareto Academy down the road. That would be great. But if this is all you do, this will improve your referability measurably, dramatically, in a reasonable period of time. In fact, there are financial advisors who in 90 days have reframed and rebranded how they position the referral concept, the concept of an introduction with clients and strategic partners, and the lift has been incredible, okay? It is just add water. All of the resources are provided. You don't have to be creative with scripting. We provide you with the sample templates, sample agendas, resources for you and your team to improve referability so everybody is completely on the same wavelength. It is right here available for you, and I'll show you how to access this in a moment. Now, before we do, what I'd like to do is bring on a friend of mine who has been a client of Pareto Systems for many years. His name is Mark Fujiwara in California. Mark, are you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing, Duncan?
Excellent, Mark. Thank you very much for being here. And I know you've heard me ranting about our process probably 100 times. I'm sure you could do a better job talking about it. But I really appreciate you being here and sharing some of your insights and experiences by refining your approach using our process.
Oh, absolutely. I think the first thing, Duncan's right. I think when I first heard Duncan speak several years ago, I pretty much was convinced pretty early on. The one thing that I did, I think the first thing that I really wanted to hone in on was the whole introductory process. And I just knew that just because of what I was looking for in a coach at the time, and just to go through it real quick, before I started working with Pareto systems, I actually had not received a referral from a client probably for a good 9 months, and started to do this with pretty much all my clients as I started having client meetings. And Duncan kind of warned me up front that, the referral gates aren't going to just open up when you start using this process to clients. But I got to tell you, they actually did. So I didn't receive any referrals for 9 months. And then the next 3 months, I got 6 introductions from clients. 3 of them turned into clients who definitely fit my client profile just by using this process. And what really did it was just putting it on the agenda. Well, first of all, I wasn't using agenda before, before I met Duncan, and putting it on the agenda, just going through it. And I think what I will tell all of you out there is that you don't have to make this perfect. And that's kind of how I approached it. I said, you know what, just know what I'm talking about in terms of the introduction process, and just do it with the client. And it does feel awkward at first because I never really asked for referrals beforehand. It was kind of just the old school way of asking to write down 3 to 5 names on a note card when I'm sitting across from the client after they sign on as a new client. This was a little bit, deeper, of course. And so I started doing that. And what I found, too, in terms of what Duncan talked about is as you're explaining your process and who you're looking for, your clients will start to coach the introductions as they come in. And what I noticed right off the bat was the fact that when these referrals started walking through my door in that first meeting, it seemed like they were on their best behavior because they were the ones that wanted to convince us that they were the right client for us. Whereas in the past it was vice versa, where the client comes in and he's like, "Oh, I'm talking to all these different advisors, and I'm gonna evaluate you guys on all this stuff." All of a sudden, the table was turned right off the bat. So, once they got in the door and if they were qualified clients, they pretty much became a client if we determined there was fit. So sorry to ramble.
That brings up a really good point, Mark. I mean, part of being referable is that a client will actually create predisposition for a friend or family member in advance of them meeting you, so that the friend comes to meeting with you with anticipation instead of apprehension, thinking this is a sales encounter. The mystery is removed. The friend knows that this is just you being available as a sounding board to get to know each other and understand where each other is at, and then see where it goes from there. So that fit process, as opposed to a sales process, improves your referability. But Mark, so the net is you don't ask for referrals, right? You just communicate your value?
That's true. That's true. And all the things you talked about, Duncan, communicating my value, talking about other things than money, talking to the clients about their family, occupation, their relationships, or, kids or grandkids, just noticing those little things. I think what if I could share a quick story of how it affected me on a specific client. I have a client who's got at the time about a couple million with me, and I've had this couple for a long time, and they seemed like they really got along, but for about almost 10 years they didn't refer me a lick of business, and I knew they knew a ton of people. So I started this process with them, and then I started to plug in these little reminders, as Duncan referred to. And just a few months after, after our, I think it was one of the quarterly meetings that we went through, and it's not like they gave me a name right off the bat, but it was a few days later. The wife calls me on the phone, and it's like 9 o'clock at night. She's all apologized. She says, "I don't mean to call you, but I'm so excited because I just talked to a relative selling her business. They've got, they got just boatloads of money, and she just told me that she's kind of had it with her financial advisor. They got all these different accounts all over the place. The end result, though, is that I end up getting this client. She is probably the top client that I have, along with the fact that this couple has referred me probably another 2 or 3 clients that have been well qualified. So, it definitely works.
So what's interesting is, the advisors tell me the origins of introductions. And what I get excited about is not necessarily the new client. I get excited about, how often has that person made the introduction? And it's true. I hear advisors tell me all the time, some of their best clients today were introductions from great clients, and it was the first time that person made an introduction. And then the person introduced has gone on to make introductions and become an advocate. So it becomes this incredible genealogy within the business. Now, Mark, so you came on board with us a little over 10 years ago, and then you've revisited and gone through a refresher now last year.
Right.
The introduction process is one module in our all-encompassing approach. Could you tell us from the standpoint of just overall referability, has going through that just reduced the friction and added to the predictability and the consistency of referability to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In terms of predictability too, I think I used to be more of, I reacted to clients calling in, and now I have, part of this too is being upfront with clients and telling them this is what you expect. As a client, I'm going to call you with this frequency. We're going to meet with this frequency. This is what we're going to discuss. Everything's out on the table. They know when to expect my call. I think I made this comment to Duncan just the other day. I said, it's funny. I don't get any incoming calls, which is great. I can pretty much manage my business that way, where the clients know when I'm going to call them. They know they have an issue. They can always call me, and I'll give them a call right back within 24 hours. But the point is that the consistency on this has improved my relationships with my clients and improved my life too. Because I used to felt like I was tied to my phone, tied to the office, had to be there. Clients are always calling in, and I think the big thing to me was I took a week and a half off when my son was born, and when I returned to the office, my assistant told me, I was surprised. I said, I didn't hear from anyone. I didn't get a email or text from her that so and so had called, and she said, yeah, the couple clients called, and they just because they knew that I told them, I said, I'm going to be gone for a week and a half. A couple clients called just because they wanted to know how everything was going with the family, the new son, and no client called during that week and a half, which was that to me was a big deal. That's what really opened my eyes.
Well, to your point, Mark, that point I made regarding the advocate service, the more consistently proactive a financial advisor is with his or her clients, the less reactive the advisor needs to be. Because
That's right.
There's no longing, there's no mystery, there's just a sense of control and consistency. And as you said, the business starts to serve your life rather than the other way around. And the client experience just creates this foundation of referability. And I'll just share with everybody before we wrap up. It's advisors like Mark who have effectively been our workbench, our laboratory, who have shared with us what works and what doesn't. We've assimilated all of these reactions and stories and examples into our overall process and created this Pareto Academy. Now, the beauty of the Pareto Academy is that from a return on energy and return on investment perspective, it's unrivaled. Now, Mark is just an example of a great student, which means he wasn't looking for a silver bullet or magic or pixie dust. He did the work. He translated into results by, being actionable with the process. The beauty here with the Pareto Academy, as you can see here, our slogan is, Pareto Academy is an online virtual coaching application that allows financial professionals and their teams to access turnkey practice management programs and procedures. It is turnkey. Just add water, stir in lime, good things are going to happen. So as we wrap up, here is your call to action. If you want to implement our introduction process, the process used by Mark and some of the best financial professionals in North America, we're making this available to you absolutely free of charge. Simply go to ParetoAcademy.com and go to Introduction Process and hit the subscribe button, and you will get this entire module that you can access with your team. Contrast it to your current approach as a frame of reference, build in on the gaps, and see the results. And you hold us accountable. You implement and you field test this throughout the course of the next 90 days. You will make meaningful and measurable progress in a reasonable period of time. And if you want to jump to the next step and accelerate your results from a panoramic and all-encompassing perspective, while you're at ParetoAcademy.com, you'll see the Pareto system where you get continuous refinement, consistent results. This is bumper to bumper. The introduction process, one strategy of 20 within the Pareto system. Now, the Pareto system per subscriber is $35 a month for the year, okay? So in terms of an investment, there's no soft cost, there's no downtime, it's instant. You live at your computer, have you and your team adopt and integrate the entire practice management and client acquisition process. Everything I talk about in terms of, a procedures manual, an org chart, a service matrix, classifying your clients, a service model, the entire approach, engaging strategic partners, and maximizing client relationships. It is turnkey within the Pareto system, $35 a month. So that's what I would ask you to do, and we'll wrap up with this last slide. There is a quick snapshot of our website. Simply go on, key in your name, email. You'll have triggered through a process to create a password. You'll get access to the introduction process. If you want to move right into the Pareto system, that is available to you as well. Okay? So thank you very much. If you're on LinkedIn, make sure you join our LinkedIn network, Duncan MacPherson, Pareto Systems. We push all kinds of great strategies there pretty much every business day. And I would love to hear your success stories and results similar to Mark Fujiwara by using the Pareto Academy. So feel free to check in with us at any point. I hope this has been valuable for you. If you have any questions, contact us. And if you represent a firm, we have a private labeled enterprise version of the Pareto Academy through a learning management system that we can make available for your firm. Just check in with us on that, and we can give you a demonstration of that. Simply call us at 866-593-8020 or visit us at ParetoAcademy.com. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this is a good investment of your time, and I hope to see you as a subscriber on the Pareto Academy. Thank you very much. Bye for now.